Welcome back to the Pre-Med Pod. This is Sienna.
And I'm Maddie. And today we are joined with Paola Lopez, who is a very, very special guest. Paola, could you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're on?
Thank you guys. Happy to be here. So my official title is a doctoral student in clinical psychology, but really I'm just Paula. I am a first generation immigrant who migrated from Colombia. I really enjoy outdoor movement activities, listening to music from my vinyl player, and spending time with my dog. We have like mental health walks together. He is here with me, so if he barks, I'm sorry. He'll like hear anything and he'll bark.
That's funny. Mine's here too behind me, so maybe
I,
they'll see each other.
I have my headphones, so hopefully he doesn't hear anything from like us talking.
Yeah, we were literally just joking about it before because Sienna's dog like jumped up on her bed, which is like behind her, but you can't see it like in the recording for some reason. But
Hmm.
because like that platform like zooms in. But before the recording, we were like joking about it because he's literally the cutest thing ever, and he's like on her like lap. I don't know where my dog is, but she's not in this room right now, so mm.
Maybe the dog will join later.
Yeah, that would be so
Special
cute.
guest.
Yes. So you said that you were a first generation immigrant. Can you tell us a little bit about how like your life here is and how like culture plays a role in your life?
Yeah. I came when I was like 4 years old, so I've pretty much grown up in this individualistic type of setting. My culture plays a big part in, I guess, who I am because, like, my mom has like indigenous blood, she has like native skin, and so I'm very proud of that. And so I try to speak Spanish as much as possible, especially down here in South Florida, kind of like not to forget my own language. And then, of course, celebrating traditions that we have as like a family, I think is what influences me the most to kind of stay grounded.
So throughout high school and schooling in general, going to college and now in med school for clinical psychology and everything, do you think that learning from parents who were immigrants and being first generation played into a role of maybe independence or really pushed you towards your goals in school?
Yes, definitely the independence, but also their hard work influenced me a lot. They left a life behind, right? We were just starting our life. Me and my brother, were just starting a life here, right? So they left their life to sacrifice that for us in a way, and so they had to work hard. They At the beginning it was like multiple jobs and stuff like that. So like that drive, that motivation that I learned from them definitely led me to pursuing like higher education so that I can be like a professional. You get me? And like they had an American dream of what they wanted to do but couldn't, so they brought it for us. And so I'm kind of just trying to live that for the both of us.
That's like I love like to hear that, and a few of our other guests have also been, like first generation and like have different backgrounds. So it's always so cool to like hear about everyone's like differences and like diversity because it's like I obviously like don't like I'm not an immigrant, so like I don't really know about anything other than this. So it's always so cool to like learn from everyone with different backgrounds.
Yeah, and
So,
especially down here in South Florida.
no, yeah, it is. So going off of that a little bit and into more of the schooling, how were you in high school? And did you always know that like psychology was something that you wanted to pursue?
No, actually. In high school, I was an athletic trainer for the soccer and baseball season. So that's kind of like what I thought I wanted to pursue. School for me was kind of just steady. I had like really good grades, but I was the first graduating class of this new magnet school that they had opened. And at the time, I was living really far south in Miami-Dade County. So the magnet program was like the only way for me to stay within the range of where my friends were going and stuff like that. So it was kind of just like finish what you started type of thing. But I mean, I did preparation for college, but high school was okay. I think I really started to pick up on my diligence and hard work like when I got to college. And I started off as kind of like a pre-med thing because I wanted to pursue that sports medicine athletic trainer role. I jumped to psychology, I think, after my first intro to psychology class. And I think it was a mixture of many things that kind of made me want to change to psychology. But it was mostly, I felt like some of the intensive coursework for pre-med was more challenging for me than some of the work that I started doing with psychology. So that's when my switch happened.
So do you ever feel like you miss like the athletics and like the training and that kind of stuff, or do you ever feel like you missed out on going like to medical school, or are you like super happy with psychology?
So to answer, I don't feel like I missed out on med school because I knew that it wasn't for me just from how challenging it felt during those first couple of years. I do miss the sports and the medical side of like that sport divisions. I'm very much a sporty girl. Like I love attending like sports events and stuff like that. And I think there's a really, really good um like opening to do sports in mental health in clinical psychology. So it's still very much one of my interests, still something that I'm kind of like pursuing. Right now I'm in the internship process, the application process for internship in my doctoral program, and that's a lot of what I'm seeking just because I haven't had that experience down here in the clinical sites.
I think that's really cool. There's definitely a big gap, I think, at the moment of people who are athletes and then also taking care of their mental health because, of course, there's such a big emphasis on making sure physically you're in the best shape and you're recovered in that way. But a lot of people, I think, forget about the mental toll. And I also think the mental toll has a major impact on physical health. Are you seeing that at all in athletes or in general somewhere around that area?
I would say in general, I'm not seeing any athletes myself in terms of clinical rotations, but because I love sports, I follow sports and I follow athletes, athletes that I have no communication with, but I have been, a fan throughout their careers where I see how some different results depend sometimes on their performance and how they may impact or intersect. So that's kind of why I still have that interest because I've kind of just seen that in these athletes that I followed throughout all these years as a sports fan.
That's it's really like I mean like I obviously people have like a bunch of different interests, but it's always cool to see when you can like combine two like interests that could be pursued individually, but when you bring them together, it's like definitely something that like you'll love doing like for the rest of your life. So you talked a little bit about your like going through the internship process. Could you give us a little bit more like information on that? Like what is it? How's the application process? Like what do you have to do to apply? Like all about it.
Do you want me to start also with a little bit of how to get to grad school and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So applying for bachelor's and that was like it was just like a regular process. I think you guys are in that process now. It's tedious. So, I was accepted to FIU and then I wasn't like given enough financial assistance. So I went to my community college, then transferred back into FIU. Once I finished, I took a year off and test. which is kind of like the SAT, but for grad school. So I took a year off to study and to travel a little bit. But that year off really helped me have like a really good score. And then I applied to 3 universities and I was offered a place in 2 of them. And I chose the one that was more local to me because financially it was just like a better decision. So now I'm in my third year of my doctoral program. So we're working on our thesis right now, and then the internship process is the preparation is writing essays, writing cover letters, making sure that your resume, or we say the CV, um, is up to date, and you're kind of like making yourself stand out, right? You and me, Maddie, we did that I assisted you with your A project, right? So that as a mentor helps me kind of like stand out for some of the other clinical work that I'm doing. So that preparation is also tedious, I would say, because you really have to do things that one you love and two are going to help you set yourself aside from all the other applicants around the nation. So it's a little scary and overwhelming, but it's definitely doable. Like when you just kind of follow my school's curriculum to with this preparation towards internship.
Is Where did you travel during your year off?
I went to Europe. I went to Paris and Spain. I spent time in Colorado a lot. Um, I also went to California. So I definitely did a little world tour while I was also studying for that GRE.
What is the like? I don't. Is it still a thing? Like, what is the GRE? Like, I know you said it's kind of
You
like the
know,
SAT, but like, what's on it?
yeah. Similar. It's very much like literature, math, kind of like bridging concepts together and formulating like the best answer of, it's very much standardized testing. And I think, after COVID, a lot of schools are waiving it for grad schools. They may still be doing that. I really haven't heard of anybody having to study for it since I did it myself. So it's very much like the SAT, just a little harder.
Yeah, we obviously like for pre-med, we know about the MCAT, so there's
MCAT.
that.
Hmm.
But I guess for like a graduate program, it would be that. So I don't know. I'm
Exactly.
gonna do some research because I've never. I mean, like I've heard of it. I just don't know what's like what it is, and I want to know if like it's still a
Yeah.
thing. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just that, exactly what you said. Like medical school has the MCAT and then the rest of grad school has the GRE. And I know that there's specialized GREs. Like I know that there's a GRE for psychology specifically, like if you want to kind of go that route and really set yourself aside when you're applying. But you can kind of do more like the general term one, which is kind of what I did.
So do you, I mean, you like to travel, you like sports, your dog. Do you think you have like I guess with your schedule because you're in grad school, you're preparing for the internship, you're doing clinical rotations, all that kind of stuff. Do you have time and do you find yourself with downtime or do you have to make time to like do all the stuff you love?
It's definitely making time. Definitely, time management is huge when there's so much going on and so many things, so many deadlines that are still ahead. Um, Making time is definitely it, especially like making time for yourself. Because life is overwhelming and all of these other things are really overwhelming. And so it's just giving back to yourself as well. Because otherwise, then the making time for everything else won't feel like worth it because you're so exhausted.
Do you I guess learn about stuff that you implement into your life like every day because I know like obviously I'm not a psychologist but when I took AP Psych I was like learning things and I would like use them every day. So do you like do that with like your like relating to mental health like I guess techniques or like strategies?
Yes, yes. a lot of cognitive reframing, right? Like kind of changing your thoughts from the negatives that like the I can't do it or this feels hard, kind of like really encouraging and motivating yourself and making them like affirmations and stuff like that. I feel like that's what helps me the most. And also, mindful activities and movement, mindful activities like walking my dog, or, just like reading a book or even journaling. Like, I feel like I really try to make time for that, like I can't always go get a massage or do all these other cool self-care stuff, so in a way like this is the low level of self-care that like really just helps organize the mind a little more.
When you journal, do you use a prompted journal or do you have one that's just lines and you kind of free write?
I free write. I have done prompted journaling sometimes when I'm like not, I guess, when I'm struggling to understand what I am experiencing or what I'm feeling. That's when I use prompts. But usually, like, I'll just free write, and it's almost like I'm dictating what I would say to somebody, kind of just like letting it out, venting in a way.
I've never journaled, but like it's always like it's like I don't know. I see the like aesthetic journals and I always like want to do it, but I feel like doing it more for like your mental health is like definitely more sustainable and better. But I don't know, like what's something like you found like that's helped you with like by doing journaling? Like what's something that like has come out of that? Because I've never really like talked to anyone about it. I've heard of it, but I've never like heard like talked about it.
I think for me, what's come out of journaling is holding myself accountable, because there are sometimes, mistakes or patterns that I'll engage in that I need to kind of be reminded by. And the more that I journal and the more that I am kind of just venting and stating the things that I'm going through or all these things, it helps me pick up on what I'm doing to kind of contribute to these things happening to me or these things that I'm feeling. And so it helps me pick up on my role in the things that I struggle with. It's not self blame, it's just kind of like the accountability aspect of, okay, what ways can I change so that I don't feel this way often? That made sense.
Yeah, I've been journaling now. I started journaling probably at the beginning of the year in 2022, like kind of January, and I've noticed that once I started to journal, I noticed there was patterns of behavior that I didn't even realize I had where I would react in certain ways to certain situations and I would look back on them and realize, whoa, I never even noticed that I would get was bothered at certain times when I was doing really random
Hmm.
things. Like if I was
Yeah.
working on a project, it could even be the smallest project that wasn't important. If someone came in and just talked to me, I would automatically feel really flustered. And so noticing those little behaviors, and I really think now I've been able to reflect on them and kind of be aware of how I'm feeling and how I know that maybe there's certain things that I can work on personally. And I've really seen a lot of growth, but it definitely takes a lot of, I would say, practice and habit building. I struggled a ton at first to, journal, and now I feel incomplete if I don't do it in the morning.
Yeah, I think you made a good point where when we reflect on the things that we are kind of doing, we pick up on our behavior, and then also we begin to have a little bit more of compassion for ourselves for the things that maybe we didn't realize or we didn't know any better of. Um, that's also, I feel like, one of the main things that I've gotten from journaling, kind of just having compassion for myself. Like, it's okay to sometimes make mistakes over and over. But at one point, you have to have compassion for yourself and kind of make that change.
I just got a journal, not for journaling, but I'm gonna use it for that because like I don't know, like it sounds cool, like it sounds like it helps, and I feel like I need it. So I already wrote in
Yeah.
it, but it's okay. I'll like change it to journaling.
Yeah, sometimes I think of it as like the therapy that I can, can get daily, because therapy is really only once a week, And so there's so much you can do or say in 1 hour, right? So in a way, it's like I'm talking to my therapist and just kind of venting.
So as a doctoral student in psychology, do you have a therapist too?
Yeah, I do. It's not required or anything by our program. Um, but I'm a believer that you'll always run into people that remind you of other things and other situations. And as clinicians who, take an oath to do no harm, it's important to kind of work through your own stuff. So it's definitely been a good help with the stress of a doctoral program.
Do you ever like talk about your like psychology stuff with your therapist? Because when I was doing my psychology thing, like my research, I would always talk to my therapist about it because I feel like she knows. I don't know.
Yeah, in some ways, when we're talking about me and I'm like, you know what, I know that this is this, like this concept. And so it's almost like I'm assisting my therapist on how to psychoanalyze me sometimes because I'm like, I know what this concept is. So yeah, and then also she's already licensed, she's already kind of gone through the whole shebang. And so I also seek guidance and mentorship kind of from her on the stress and the process of attaining a license, graduating, and starting your practice and all that stuff. So it's definitely a mix of both.
So do you like for your future plans, do you want to start your own practice? Do you want to I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure how like psychology is in like hospitals. I know there's psychiatry, but do you like want to go into a hospital in an already like established place? Do you want to start your own? Like what are your plans for the future?
Um, I'll be honest, I haven't decided what I would want to do. There's like a mixture of options that I feel like I could start with. Hospital settings, I've done it. I've done like a rotation at a hospital setting, and it's not for the weak-hearted. We inpatient cases and intensive outpatient, it's hard work, and I salute to those clinicians. For me, more like community mental health, private practice, is what I'm leaning more towards. I work at a private practice right now as an intake specialist, and I like the flow. I like the flow. I have a colleague who I work with. She owns the practice. And there's been talks about like what it would be like to be a partnership and stuff like that. So that's kind of like a thought. But I mean, yeah, ideally, I would want to kind of work for myself and like run my own business and have also that aspect to success in a way.
Do you see yourself staying in South Florida or kind of local, or do you think you would ever end up moving somewhere?
I am seeking to move for internship. I am applying to many different states, Florida still being one of them, but I'm really, really hoping I end up somewhere at least for a year just to get the experience. South Florida is my home and it always will be. I feel like my parents will stay here for a while, till their time. And I would want roots in other places, but I haven't really, I'm unsure yet because there's so many possibilities of how even my training could take me. So, yes to wanting to leave, yes to wanting to stay.
What are some of the other states you've been looking at when you're applying?
Um, a lot of Washington state sites, a lot of Oregon, a lot of California, and a lot of the Midwest-ish, like Utah, Colorado, and Arizona. Really, really love that side of the country in terms of like nature and like hiking and what it has to offer. So that's mostly where I want to go, which is obviously the complete opposite, way, way west, and we're way east. And then of course Florida, kind of like as a grounding option.
That's
Well, I'm in
yeah.
Arizona actually, so I can advocate for the Southwest down here. I know
Hmm.
U of A has a really good medical program and psychology as well, and so that's really cool. That's really fun. Yeah. I would say though, right now is a little bit torturous. We're reaching
The
record
heat.
temperatures. There
Yeah.
was something I saw recently where people were actually getting third-degree burns by falling on the pavement, which I just find crazy. But I will say the fall, winter, and spring is perfect weather.
No, I like
Yeah.
send
Yeah.
Sienna
I
like
visited in both.
yeah. No, same. And I like send Sienna like TikToks and stuff that I see. They're on my For You page like all the time on Instagram, not TikTok, Reels. But like people like walking in like the pavement like going on like being like sticky. I don't know if it's real, but like I don't know. And then people are always like
There was-
yeah,
Yeah, there was one time I was at a lacrosse camp over the summer a couple years ago, and we were running on the turf with our cleats, and our cleats actually did start to melt.
Melted. Oh my gosh.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And even here in South Florida, we're experiencing some really, really high temperatures. Like there was a report that the ocean was like the temperature of a hot tub. And it's like, whoa, like
That was
that's intense.
yeah,
crazy. Yeah, and the humidity.
yeah, I was in Tallahassee and I the few like weeks ago and it was like over 100 degrees and I was like, oh my God, like no, I can't do this. Like
Yeah. That's the same place that it snowed years ago in Florida. So imagine like the range of
it was
of like how the weather's going is
it's
insane.
crazy. But it's funny that you say like Washington State and stuff because I am like really into University of Washington in Seattle right now. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's so far. Oh, it's so far." But I'm like, I really want to go there. Like, I don't know. So,
Yeah, I feel like that's what makes me want to go. The fact that it's far and it's new and it's completely like a huge leap of faith type of
yeah,
thing.
no, same. I agree. So, I don't know. That's cool because I've never heard anyone else, like, probably, but I haven't really, like, talked to many people in Florida that are like, oh, let's go all the way over there. Like, and I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
twins. Okay. Anyways, what, I guess, are you looking for in a program? I don't really know how the programs work, but what's, like, the kind of design of it and what are you looking for to get out of them?
I'm definitely getting more, I want more experience in assessment. Um, so testing, like a lot of testing to understand more about like centers of the brain and how that relates to behavior. And then I also really want a lot of more experience in crisis intervention. I don't feel like I have been exposed to it enough. Um, which I'm hoping that that crisis intervention kind of like makes me feel differently about hospital settings and it maybe being like too challenging for me or something like that. So I'm definitely seeking to get taken out of my comfort zone.
It's good that you like have that interest because I don't know, a lot of the times like people want to stick to the thing that they know best, but sometimes like life can surprise you, I guess. If you like go out of your comfort zone, sometimes you'll love it. I don't know. Um like
Yeah.
for just for me, like I used to be super anxious and I even though I still have anxiety and stuff, like I was like not really comfortable with like leaving my house, like sleeping out, and I did the summer program at Georgetown a few 2 years ago, and like that's when I met Sienna. So like going out of your comfort zone could like I don't know, turn into something really really cool, and there's like no harm to do any like to do that. So I don't know what is
Yeah. At least to
yeah, to
try.
try. What is crisis intervention? Like I guess like you can kind of tell from the name, but like what would that kind of psychologist like do?
Yeah. So crisis intervention is a lot of suicidal ideation, people who are experiencing severe depression or severe anxiety, or even up to severe PTSD. And so, how does that become a crisis when their functioning is impaired, right? Meaning, like getting up from from bed or not wanting to go to work, not wanting to go to school because their mental health is just so severe that it really impedes on all the other things, all the areas of functioning. And so a lot of it, from my understanding, is short-term therapy, right? So like, what can we do to make quick changes so that you can at least go back to a better level of functioning, and then kind of go into the deeper stuff there. Because my experience right now is kind of the slow pace of let's go deep, like let's take it like slow, you know. And so crisis intervention is more short-term therapy. It's more let's kind of focus on stabilization, to then be able to like dive deep and kind of go into the more of the deeper, yeah, the deeper stuff.
That's like kind of like I'm assuming like the hospital settings, all that kind of stuff, which honestly would be super interesting. Like even like I would love to, like do some like not to do because I don't know, I'm more into like the surgery stuff. I want to be a neurosurgeon, but I love to like obviously like through this podcast like we're talking to all different like medical professionals and stuff. So it's super cool to like get exposed to that and I feel like I don't know, maybe if I'm like in like pre-med or I don't know if they allow that in pre-med or like in medical school to like volunteer in like some crisis like intervention like section of like a hospital or something because I don't know, it kind of relates to
Yeah.
neuroscience and biology and all that stuff and it just sounds like super helpful for,
Yep.
people but also like to expose yourself to different like fields in medicine. So I don't know, that
Yeah.
sounds really interesting. Obviously super sad, but so like you said before, not for the weak of heart. Yeah, it
Weaker.
definitely
Yeah.
takes a strong like person to do that. But I don't know, I would love to get exposed to that a little more. That sounds super interesting.
I think you will. I feel like most medical school rotations do take you through that psych rotation. And I love that you brought up that point of like how a lot of that psychology is neuropsychology also, and neurology, which is, I've had experience with neuropsychology and testing and assessment, more for like dementia and Alzheimer's, but, for psychopathology, is kind of what I'm wanting, right? Which is assessing a little bit more of people's severe levels of, psychopathology and what that's like and how to intervene. So they definitely do occur together, where we have to think about the aspects of biology and then how it affects the neuro and then how that affects behavior and all that stuff. So it's, I guess, like what I'm seeking is more of that experience so that I can have a greater comprehensive view on every client that I'll work on in the future. Right. Not just so much, okay, like what happened to your childhood experiences, which I really, really love. Like I really am an advocate and want to specialize in trauma informed care, in trauma specialty, adverse experiences and stuff. But like, there's so much more to that. We have to have that comprehensive view of the biology, the neuropsychology, and all that. So those are like my main goals to, I feel like, help me get a better integrative approach to clinical
Yeah, and it
work.
kind of relates to the trauma stuff relates to kind of like the research I did and you were my mentor for like the dissociative identity disorder. So learning about, childhood trauma and how that affects like the brain cuz it's not even like it wouldn't be like a anxiety. It's not even like comparable to that kind of disorder. It's kind of its own thing and they're still doing
Mm-hmm.
research on that. So obviously like knowing I guess all that kind of stuff for like the future of like other patients to like I don't know, they're doing research and stuff like on trauma based, I guess, or not trauma based, but like disorders that stem from trauma. Um so if
Mm-hmm.
that's one of your I guess like field of interest or like yeah,
Wanted
like wanted
specialties. Yeah.
specialty, are you doing any kind of research on like trauma based disorders or, childhood like trauma?
Yes, but also no. I'm going in a different route for, at least for right now, in terms of trauma and trauma informed care. Right, I'm actually writing my doctoral project, my thesis on mindfulness based interventions, more specifically on breath work. and how breath work relates to regulating the nervous system, which is that neurobiological approach, and how those type of interventions can help within the scope of trauma informed care. Like basically it's like recommending to clinicians like use maybe these strategies if it works for the client to regulate their nervous system, to stabilize them, to then pursue like more of the clinical therapeutic work.
My stepmom really exposed me to breath work, and now this is a little bit off topic, but anytime I actually have like a headache or a stomach ache, there's like this breath work that she taught me where you inhale like through your nose and slowly out your mouth, and almost like if you were to deflate like a balloon, like just a very slow exhale, and it works. It really does. And it's really cool how again, the mental and the physical body are so interconnected, I think. There's so much there to learn and do research on, and so I think that's a really great and also again, unresearched area where it's really fortunate that there's so many people like you who are starting to now put their focus on more of those habitual pieces of research that anyone can do as well. I mean, breath work is accessible to
It's
anybody.
free.
Yeah. Breathe every
Yeah.
day, you don't even realize. That's
Right.
great.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned like we breathe every day and we don't even realize, and that's part of my message, like we kind of are reminded that breath is something that's unconscious, right? And because we are not focused on consciously breathing, we're also unconsciously doing a bunch of other things where we're living in fight or flight, or we're living in like the freeze mode, right? And so our nervous system is dysregulated, and kind of that focus and that conscious breath is at least one of the foundations to kind of like being able to have a little bit more manageable mental health, where it's like at least I'm taking care of my body in this way where I'm regulating myself through my breath, right? And again, like it's free, it's an easy skill, right, that we have um forgotten as a conscious act. And so that's kind of like where I'm trying to go with this research, where it's like there's not enough about how conscious breathing is so fundamental, to little symptoms like what you mentioned, Sienna, like a headache.
So, is there like different kinds of like patterns, I guess, in breath work for different like circumstances and like situations?
There's different types of breath work that regulate the nervous system differently. Um, like, for example, there's box breathing, which is inhale for four, exhale, hold for four, exhale for four, hold for four. It's kind of like you're, doing for hmm, like certain amount of time. And so the retention of the breath helps you one store more energy, and it also helps you regulate. So this specific type of breath work is mostly used by like firefighters, right? When they are turning off a fire, right? One, to conserve like energy, and also to not keep them like take them into this like hypervigilant state of fear, right? Because anybody in a fire would feel fear no matter, even if it's just a firefighter, and so there's also different types of breath work that create different experiences in the mind, right? Like the diaphragmatic breathing that Sienna was doing is a regulatory breathing, and then there's other types of breathing that kind of give you access to different states of mind that could be therapeutic in itself, where you're exploring themes of what you're feeling, what your thoughts are.
We've been talking to a few like osteopathic like medical students, and obviously it's not really the same because I guess this is more psychology and like breathing and stuff, but is it kind of related, I guess? Like would you say breath work is kind of related to osteopathic medicine? Like is that like are they kind of interconnected? I don't know.
Tell me a little bit more about this type of
So,
medicine.
osteopathic medicine, from what me and Sienna have like heard, um, is kind of all encompassing for the mind, body, and soul. And it's more like it's
Mhm.
not an MD program. It's a DO program, but it's still a doctor. And it's kind of the same as an MD. It's just in addition, you have courses and like tools, I guess, to learn about other kinds of like medicine that you can do like without like actual medicine, without surgery, without that kind of stuff. So like I don't know, we talked about rubbing like ginger on your back if you have like the flu or something, and that kind of helps like relieve the symptoms without like medicine, or like there's some things you could do for a headache and like pressure points, all that kind of stuff.
I would say
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
a holistic standpoint of medicine
Hmm.
with different sources of like pressure points and areas. I don't want to like say because I'm
yeah,
not
I'm not.
100% sure, but things like that that are more just from a holistic standpoint that is really again accessible to anybody.
I would say yes. It's that type of medicine is awesome. I think it derives a lot from Eastern traditions, which is kind of where breath work and meditation come from. Meditation is breathing. It's not just closing your eyes and, not thinking about anything. It's really just breath work. And I would say 100% that is in a way medicine. Our own breath is medicine, right? Not only for our physical symptoms and the rest of our body, but also for our mind.
Yeah, my mom and I were literally talking about this yesterday, so it's like really funny that you're saying this right now. Like last night we were talking about breath work and I was like, I literally don't understand that. Like I don't get it, but I've never been taught it, so like I don't know. Once I learn it, it'll definitely
Hmm.
like help. But my mom's just like, do research on breath work, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like I don't know how to look that up. Like I don't know. So I feel
Hmm.
like kind of what you were saying, more like exposure and stuff, like that's the whole thing about your thesis, and like the importance of it is like really beneficial because I don't know, I feel like it could help me and I just don't know what to do. Like I need to like learn it, but I feel like once it's more like incorporated and more talked about, it'll be easier to like I don't know, like use as a strategy. Mhm.
Hmm.
It's really
Yeah,
funny.
I agree.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say it's really funny because sometimes if I text or call like my mom or my dad kind of in a panic, they will just say, "Oh, just take a breath, like take a deep breath." And I'm like, "What do you mean take a deep breath? Like I'm freaking out here." And then there's times where like I will just take the time and be like, "Okay, I do need to take a deep breath." And it's so funny how even within a couple moments it really does change your entire perception on like, okay, this is going out of proportion. I need to I think it's just very grounding. That's the word. Where you just really feel back and like connected, and I think again from kind of feeling out of place, just becoming conscious and aware of your breathing is so crucial.
Yeah. Um, I think the idea of like just bringing awareness to your breath and just being conscious of only doing that thing is what is the grounding, where now we're not focusing on anything else, no thoughts, no circumstances, no whatever is happening around me, but I'm only just focusing on this one thing. And I feel like that's what's grounding for me, where it's like, okay, it's almost like we're putting all the luggage down for a second and just kind of like admiring the view, like it's in that way where it's just one thing that we're doing, not these other million things that we've trained our mind to do.
Yeah, I feel like especially because like for us we're going through the college process, and I know in school I get so stressed out like before a test or like after a test, like when I'm getting my grade back, even if it's good, like I just get really nervous. And I was scrolling through Instagram the other day and I saw these like stickers that are like box breathing, and they also have like other ones, and you put them like on like the pad of your computer, and like you can like you like look at it at school. I'm like, yes, like this might be interesting. And now that we're talking about it, I'm like, I'm definitely getting it because I feel like it'll help a lot. I don't know. Because I never knew about like the importance and like all the benefits of breath work, but now I'm like, I better like do that.
Yeah. It's definitely a habitual practice, and it'll take time to pick up, just like any other skill that you're trying to learn. But once it becomes a habit, it's something that you can always rely on.
Especially because, like you said, it's like you breathe every day. So I don't know. I feel like it's
Yeah,
definitely,
it's
yeah.
it's always there. You
Yeah,
always
you
have it
need
with
it.
you.
So I don't know. I
You
kind
know?
of,
Yeah. Yeah, like I have fidget toys to help, and then sometimes I forget them, or sometimes I'll, like step out of wherever I am and I don't have it with me. And it's like that this is one tool that will always be with you,
yeah,
you
like,
know?
Besides fidget toys and breathing as well, are there any other kind of personal habits or tips that you have to kind of help reground yourself or become aware of your thoughts and feelings and processes during the day?
I've recently started a gratitude exercise. I have like a notebook and I try to complete from top to bottom. I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, and kind of like going through my day, the last 24 hours and being like, what am I grateful for from this day? And it'll be silly things like I'm grateful for the time I spent with my dog, or I'm grateful for the food that I had today, or the food that I prepared, or and it's like I'm thankful for clean sheets. I'm grateful, like those things I think really has helped me just take it day by day, because there's going to be a million more deadlines once I finish all those deadlines that I currently have. You know what I mean? And that's a given. But it's very reflective to stay in the present, because everything that a lot of what I struggle with is anticipatory anxiety, which is what anxiety is. Not, at the end of the day, everything that we have are anticipating and all that stuff. And so that's future oriented stuff and so I forget about what's present, what's here. And I think those few things are the most earthing activities that I engage in.
yeah, because I don't know. I feel like it's good to like, I mean, even if you're not going into medicine, like just having the background in psychology can be so beneficial because, like how we're talking about it, you can use what you're learning and like the importance of it, your background in it, to like help you on a day-to-day basis, not even for your job, like for yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like I totally agree with what you're saying, and I feel like it's important to, like know how you work because everyone is different, how you react to certain things and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the journaling, that's super important because like you learn your patterns and stuff. You can recognize when you need something to change instead of going around like you're going through life like reacting to things, not knowing why. So, yeah, that's my thing.
I think what we'll do is we'll slowly start to bring our episode today to a close, but we do have our rapid fire final three questions, and you can answer them as short as long as you like. You can further elaborate. And yeah, so we can start off with our first question, which is, what is one piece of advice you would give to your high school self?
I would say, like, keep visualizing it, like the whole picture, all the goals, everything you want to accomplish. Because if you keep visualizing it, then it'll be the driving force to motivate you and to allow you to continue to make changes for these goals, right? And also allowing changes while you are in this journey of achieving these things. Like be flexible in all ways, with your words, with your thoughts, with your feelings, and with your body. Um, I feel like that's definitely what I needed to hear when I was in high school. Um, yeah, just kind of like keep going, just keep
That
visualizing it.
sounds, yeah, that's something that, I feel like I think about all the time because I have goals, like, obviously, to pursue medicine. And when I'm stressed out or when I'm like, I can't do this, I always think about my future and, like, visualize what I want to get out of what I'm doing now because everything is so important to playing like in playing a
Exactly.
role to your future, which I've realized. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
One thing
Mm-hmm.
I've done before actually when I've journaled a couple times is when I sometimes will feel kind of unmotivated or I'm like so stressed out and starting to feel burnout coming on, or I just need to kind of reevaluate kind of my goals. I'll almost, what I've journaled before is imagine like your dream house when you're older and write it out, or your dream life or your dream day or something like that. And I'll write it down. I'll kind of envision what I see my life being like one day. And it really helps kind of re reground my like why, or reinforce my reasoning on why I'm trying to work so hard, or why I should be taking better care of myself right now and maybe I'm not prioritizing certain things that I should be. And again, it really helps. So I guess going back to journaling, and I guess it almost kind of links into manifestation, which I've done a little bit of work on, but and research on, but again, I really think even if it isn't something that everybody necessarily believes in on the spiritual level, I think manifestation is so real in the idea that anything that you think of and really put your mind to can be yours if you really envision it and work towards that picture
I'm
that you
laughing at
have
the
in your mind.
manifestation because I literally every single 11/11 I saw it on Instagram. Oh no, on TikTok like a long time ago. Every 11/11 I take a picture on Snapchat and I put like the 11/11 like the time, and I'm like I will get into this college. I will get into this college. I'll get into this college. And like I don't know if that's actually manifestation, but like it's in my folder like in my phone. It's manifesting college. And then as you can see my little stethoscope here. I like to look at the stuff, and I have right here on my desk this like medical terminology thing because I like think like looking at the future. I don't like just imagining it. Like no, I like seeing all the stuff. Like I don't know, on my day to day, it just like keeps me going.
The reminders, I think they're excellent because we don't have no idea how manifestation works. No anecdotal evidence for it. But it's the same way that like if you work towards something and you work hard enough, like you'll achieve it. It's the same way when we're saying all that in our mind, like if the reminders help us to continue to move forward, then in a way, like I'm already achieving it. I'm already living in it. Yeah. I love using that word,
Yeah,
but I'm
same.
careful about using it with
Same.
certain
Yeah.
people. But definitely,
Because I'm
yeah,
like
it
I don't
definitely
know
is
if this is actually
manifestation.
manifestation or if it's like real, but like I'm gonna just say it. So whatever. So for our next question, it's important to us because obviously we're good friends and we like interact with our friends on a day-to-day basis. So how do your relationships play a role in your life? So your friends, family, other kinds of relationships, anything like that.
I like to think of them as space travel. Like on here on Earth, I am doing these things in school, doing work, clinical rotation, all that stuff. And when I hang out with my friends and my family, it's like I'm traveling to a different place in my mind where I don't have to think about those things. And so I really honor my relationships, my friendships, my family, because for those bits that I'm with them, I'm able to feel grounded in a different way. When I'm like learning and catching up about their life and vice versa. So they play a huge role in keeping me feeling good.
I really like that kind of separation between like work life and maybe some busier things than with your relationships and your family, because I mean a lot of the time, and it's not that this is bad, but a lot of the time people will kind of mesh those together and see that as a form of support, and sometimes it is a really good way to receive support from certain people, but I do think that by being able to have those separate kind of, we'll say, worlds, like you said, with travel, of family and that social aspect of life and those connections, I do think you're able to be more present with them. And it's better
Mhm.
for you probably in the long run by being able to just, when you think back on your encounters with them, you're able to see that you guys were able to spend time doing quality things together that you guys both bond over versus talking about maybe work or school or stressful things that maybe aren't exactly ideal to talk about.
Yeah, and even
all
with
the
like your
time. Yeah.
dog, as you said, like that's a super important relationship. And I know that recently schools, I know my school has it, but I think more college, they've been doing like the dog programs, kind of like therapy dogs. So they like come in and stuff, and I'm like, oh yes, like you. I know there's like at Tulane, because I was talking to a student there. There's like a dog like training program or something like for dog therapy, which is super important. I feel like I love dogs, and I'm like,
Oh.
even those relationships with like pets and stuff can, it's like been proven literally by science that like those can help you too. So I feel like relationships are just super important.
Yeah, during science week, during finals week, our school will bring in therapy dogs. And so between our finals, there will be tons of dogs and people can just go up and pet them or play with them. And it's a really relaxing process and it does really take your mind off. And I know my dog is like my therapy dog, even though he's not necessarily trained as one. He feels like it to me, and there is something so special about your pets.
Yeah. I feel like our pets and our close interpersonal relationships is like that serotonin release that we seek when we're overwhelmed or stressed.
Yeah, agreed.
So, Sienna, do you want to do our last question?
Sure. So, our final question for you is what is one challenge you are currently facing and what are you doing to overcome it?
I think we've touched on this theme a little bit this time that we've been speaking. My biggest challenge right now is feeling overwhelmed, and being overwhelmed. Um, and I what the way that I feel like I'm tackling it and handling it and having like a grip on it, is moving my body and giving myself time to do all those things that we mentioned, the journaling, the gratitude, even distraction through like shows sometimes, right? Like just giving myself that time, not being black or white about it. Like, no, you shouldn't give yourself this time because you have so many other things to do. Kind of like it's okay to have like little breaks like that. But I feel like mostly moving my body is what keep at least releases the energy from my body.
And you said the main forms of like activity for you is like walking, kind of being out in nature, right? Are there any other kind of main forms of exercise or movement that you personally find are the most effective for you when you're releasing energy in that way?
I love playing tennis. I play a little bit of golf, and I work out at the gym. I take these classes like they're group classes led by a coach. So that's really helpful because I don't have to think about what I need to do at the gym or what I want to work out. It's like kind of already thought of for me. So that's one less stressor. But yeah, just doing like those sort of sports where they're not rigorous, and mostly they're just like
Yeah,
fun.
I'm always like, I have to like actually do exercise because I'm like not an exercising person at all, which is kind of bad. But I feel like the more we've talked to like medical professionals, like, and I was shadowing a doctor, everyone's like talking about exercise, and I'm like, I feel like I don't have time. How if they can do it, like I can do it because they really don't have time. They're at the hospital 24 hours a day, like seriously. So I don't know. I definitely want to start exercising
Yeah.
more, but right now I'm pretty good with swimming in the pool because honestly, that's exercise and it's fun and you can be outside. But I have noticed that I feel better when I am outside, which obviously is like a thing, but like you said with
Hmm.
nature and stuff, like it makes you feel better
Yeah.
when you're in nature and stuff. I don't know because I don't know. I literally have not left my room in like a day, and I feel like I should probably go outside after this.
Yeah, and I would say something just like advice, I guess, is for me something that helped me get started was reframing it from exercise, which sounds dreadful, to movement. Like literally rephrasing it from those two words, because movement sounds way more appealing, and it sounds flexible to the body, where it doesn't have to be this specific exercise. It's just a movement to allow the body to flow, to let like dancing, swimming is exercise, sure, yeah, but it's also you're moving your body in different ways. So that's something that really helped me reframe that dreadfulness of what it's like to exercise.
I also think there's one thing that again people don't talk about is that exercise has to be this rigorous and intense, like painful thing that you have to do every day. I think
Mm-hmm.
exercise is found in so many ways that people don't even really think of. I used to play lacrosse for a long time throughout middle school and then freshman and sophomore year. And as the coaching also started to decline, I realized that it wasn't for me. I didn't like every day running and feeling like this really intense kind of exercise where you were pushing yourself to this feeling of just absolute exhaustion. And I don't know, there was something about just the intensity of it that wasn't for me, I realized. And so I ended up taking a while off of doing any exercise, kind of thinking that that was all that there was to exercise, is that it's going to be this intense, painful, short practice and then it's done and then you're tired the next day. But recently I've kind of really fallen into liking walks. I absolutely love walking now. I run very rarely. Sometimes if I'm really up for it I will, but I've just been loving doing walks. And then also yoga's been playing a major role in my life recently with exercise. And actually, I there's a chance that I'm going to be taking a job working at a yoga studio, which I think will be really great. I've been working at a restaurant for a while, and the hours for me just weren't exactly lining up with, school and the college applications and everything. And by working here, it'll also be in the morning, which is great. But also, I think finding somewhere that something that has a beneficial form of movement for you. There's so many ways to get movement in your day which aren't even thought about. And there's so many unique and entertaining forms of movement that are
Yeah.
out there.
I will jump off of what you said, Sienna. I think movement and exercise can be gentle because the all the deadlines and things we have to do and stuff like that, sometimes that's not gentle, because it creates so much stress or anxiety in our mind, and like that doesn't really always feel good. And so the things that are, kind of meant to make us feel good, they can be gentle. They don't also have to be so harsh. And so I love that you found movement in a different way where it's like slower and kinder to the body.
That's important.
Yeah, it's been really special.
So, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. We had a great time, and I'm so honored that you came on. Is
I
there
did too.
is there anywhere
Oh,
that you
I'm
want
glad.
our viewers to visit you on social media? I know you kind of have your like mindfulness page, so I don't know if that's something you want out there, but
Yeah. Yeah, my mindfulness page on Instagram, at Healing Mastered. I have the same username for TikTok, but I get lost in watching TikTok, so I don't post on TikTok. But that's pretty much it.
thank you so much again. We had a great time.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys
Thank
are
you.
awesome. I love what you guys are doing.
All right.
Thank you. Right.